Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
At 6,288 feet tall, Mount Washington is the highest peak in the northeastern United States and is located in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It is known for its severe weather with wind speeds up to 231 miles per hour. In 1524, Giovanni Verrazzano became the first European to mention this mountain. Viewing it from the Atlantic Ocean, he wrote that he saw high interior mountains. In 1642, Darby Field was the first European to climb to the top of Mount Washington. In 1784, a geology party headed by Manasseh Cutler named the mountain after George Washington. In 1861, the Mount Washington Auto Road, originally called the Mount Washington Carriage Road, was completed. The road extends from Route 16 to the summit of Mount Washington. Construction of the road began in 1854, and it was a massive task. All transportation was done by horse or oxen, and there was no machinery to handle all of the gravel and dirt that had to be moved. Even in bad weather, the men labored over 10 hours a day.
This road will play a prominent role in our story, but for now, let's leave Mount Washington. We will look at the 1880s and the bicycle craze that was sweeping the nation. Though the bicycle has been around since the early 1800s, changes in material and design made the 1880s bicycle a smoother and safer ride than previously built bikes. By 1896, there were more than 150 bicycle factories in the United States, producing over 1,000 different makes of bikes. Historians often call this period the golden age of biking, or the bicycle craze. At the end of the 19th century, cycling had become an essential means of transportation, as well as a popular form of recreation. Bicycling clubs spread over the U.S. during this time, and the most famous bicyclist in New Hampshire was Elbridge Corson of East Rochester, New Hampshire. He preferred to be known as E.H. Corson. Corson was born in East Rochester in 1849. He learned to ride a bicycle in 1882, and his bike of choice was the Star Bike. It has a small front tire, around 19 inches in diameter, and a large rear tire, around 50 inches in diameter. It looks like a scary bike to ride.
One of Corson's most famous accomplishments was in July of 1883. He was the first person to ride a bicycle down the carriage road of Mount Washington. The road is about 16 feet wide and about 7.5 miles long. The road has a drop of 4,000 feet with 99 curves. He did this in the age when you did not wear bike helmets or other safety equipment. He used his Star Bike, which was inherently dangerous due to how tall it was. You have to be fearless to coast down Mount Washington on a bike with a simple handbrake attached to the big wheel. According to Corson, he used to brake so frequently, he wrote, "I lamed my hand and arm, so it is hard for me to write." The newspaper article about this feat was quite detailed, though it did get his name wrong. The national newspapers listed his name as Carson instead of Corson.
It stated that he went up the mountain on Monday morning from Gorham and completed the journey of 11 miles to the summit of Mount Washington, pushing his bike in advance. After resting some time at the summit, he started his dangerous journey, while the guests at the summit house held their breath in fear for his safety as he wheeled rapidly around the steep bend just below the house. Witnesses said that his brakes were in constant use. At the end of the ride, Corson's hand was very sore from constant use of his brake. The ride down the mountain took 1 hour, 50 minutes, and more importantly, he was the first person to ever do so. Afterwards, Corson wrote the Rochester Courier that he stopped a few times to enjoy the scenery, and he probably only was on his bike for an hour. If he attempted to ride down Mount Washington again, he would not stop and have a much better time.
What is amazing is that Corson was originally a carpenter and only learned to ride a bicycle in 1882. He made his death-defying ride down the mountain just a year later in 1883. He was also a salesman and sold Star Bikes. Starting from Rochester, he would take long bike tours throughout New Hampshire and Maine. As he passed through towns, he would preach the qualities of the Star Bike, and he found plenty of people eager to buy his bicycles. On one of his trips, he bicycled all the way to Gorham, New Hampshire. At one point in the late 1890s, he claimed he sold more bikes than any other individual in New Hampshire or Maine. Corson was also an author. He published the most famous book on the Star bike in 1884. It was called the Star Rider's Manual, and the book provided a short history of the bike and included important information such as how to mount and dismount the bike. The Star bike was tall, and getting on and off was not an easy thing to do.
E.H. Corson helped form the Rochester Cycle Club, which was quite popular in the late 1800s. One of the club's favorite rides was between Rochester and Farmington on a 3-foot wide bicycle path. He also operated a bicycle factory in East Rochester. By the early 1900s, his fascination with bikes waned, and he turned his attention to a faster 2-wheeled contraption. He developed an interest in motorcycles, which was just starting to come into their own. In 1904, he operated the Indian Motorcycle Company in Boston. Just like with bicycles, he sold them, taught people how to use them, and how to maintain them. He combined business with pleasure. He would drive through towns promoting and selling motorcycles.
E.H. Corson passed away at the age of 84 in Boston. His obituary stated that he was a native of Rochester, New Hampshire, a pioneer in bicycle manufacturing as well as motorcycle manufacturing. Also, he climbed Mount Washington with one of his bicycles and coasted to the bottom. And what became of the bicycle craze that swept New Hampshire and the rest of the country? Cycling dropped off dramatically in the United States between 1900 and 1915 as automobiles became the preferred means of transportation. In the 1920s, bicycles became considered children's toys, and by the 1940s, most bicycles in the United States were made for children.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.